Brahmaivahamasmi. Brahmaivahamasmi. Om. Vedantartha vibhasakaya gurave Shantaya sannyasine Nanavadi nagendra sanghapavaye Yogindra vandyaya cha Mohadvanta divakaraya bhagavat padabhidham Bibhrate Tasmai bhashyakೃತೆ namostu satatam Purnaya bodhatmane. Om. Brahmaham yat prasadena Mai vishvam prakalpitam Shrimat swayam prakashakhyam Pranami jagatam gurum Yah paramatma jagat srishtva Pravivesha punasvayam Tang krishnam pratyagatmanam Vande gopi manoharam Yasya prasadadahamadvayatma Vishvam samastam mayi kalpitancha Tan sarvalokaika gurum sadashri Swayam prakasham gurumanatosmi Gurunam charanam bhojam Pranipatya nirantaram Tatkripa dvaita Chinta kaustubhamarabhe. Sorry. Explanation regarding Jiva and Ishvara from the Eka Jiva vaad standpoint was given. And in that case, it is said, consciousness reflected in avidya or in ajnanam is Jiva. But consciousness conditioned by avidya is called as Ishvara. Now, this is the difference. And under Eka Jiva vaad, meaning the theory of just one Jiva being there, then how does it justify the multiplicity of Jivas? Because the multiplicity of the Jivas is also experienced, because that experience also needs an explanation, a justification that how is that kind of an experience possible. Let me tell you one thing, that all these darshankaras are striving for one thing, and that is trying to explain how the experience becomes possible. Experience is there. Even when it comes to the Rajju Sarpa, there is an experience of the Rajju Sarpa, that the snake on the rope. And each one is trying to explain as how does that become possible. The explanations which our Purva Acharyas have given sit in perfect tandem with the Shruti Siddhanta. And therefore, Anirvachaniya Khyati, please keep these words also with you, because you are going to be studying, understanding, thinking in terms which are very, very peculiar to the Darshan Shastra. Thinking in terms of, the common man's language is not how somebody who is technically advanced would do. So how does that become possible is explained by us in the Advaita Vedanta as the Anirvachaniya Khyati. How is that? What is that justification called? Anirvachaniya Khyati. That it is actually experienced, and it is experienced as is. So when a person experiences that Shukti Rajatam or Rajju Sarpa, he says the silver is, the snake is. Though in reality, the silver is not there in all the three periods of time. The Shukti is not Rajatam. The rope is not the snake. Yet, how does it become possible to experience the Shukti Rajatam? How does it become possible? Now, there is an explanation which goes, and various people, the Buddhists, the Nayayikas, and other people also have tried to provide an explanation. Somebody says that, well, it is there. For example, somebody who says, it is there because the Panchamahabhutas, which have gone into the formation of the rope, have the potential to become the snake. And therefore, now that potential expresses sometimes were there as snake. And therefore that snake is real. And so you have experienced. So it's this kind of an explanation also is there. The Nayayika says, no, you are experiencing the Rajatam, which is Apanastha, which is there in the silversmith's shop. It is there. But you are experiencing it here in the wrong place. So what you are seeing is real Satkhyati, the real silver only. That what we follow is Anirvachaniya Khyati. That the silver that you are seeing is not because those Panchamahabhutas are capable of becoming silver and their potential gets expressed over here, but it is purely a matter of error. And that's why you are seeing it. And it is because there is ignorance of the shell, or in case of Rajju Sarpa, ignorance about the rope. This ignorance itself, now ignorance becomes the snake. Mind you. And that's why it is possible to experience it as is. Ignorance is bhava roopam. And therefore, now even the snake or the silver, which is the parinama, transformation of ignorance, ignorance itself has transformed. This is our experience. The ignorance has transformed into the snake. or the mistaken object. Because even when you know that snake, ignorance has not gone. You do not know that it is a rope. So ignorance prevails, and it is called as anirvachaniya khyati. Like this, we have to think in these terms. So how does the Eka Jiva Vaad justify our experience of multiple jivas? And Eka Jiva Vaad and goes to explain it as, in this Eka Jiva, that single Jiva alone, the many jivas are seen exactly like the dream. Each individual in the dream also has his own personal life. He has his own personal life in the dream too. So he has his own mother, father, wife, and children, and he has his own set of problems. He has his own set of joys and sorrows. Each person of that dream. Exactly in the same manner, but ultimately when this person wakes up, the multiplicity has disappeared. Like this jiva is experiencing this multiplicity in himself. And when he wakes up to know that he is Brahman, he has discovered that all that he was experiencing as multiple, as many, is already consumed by him, is gone in him, not apart from him. Even during that experience, he alone was like the dream. So, pramataraha kalpitaha jivastu ekaha tasmin antakarana vishishtaha pramataraha. Various knowers, different knowers, and each one with his own mind, with his own psychology, is there only projected by ignorance, like in the dream. Now, the same experience of multiplicity, without compromising on the fact that Atma is Brahman, can be explained through Nana Jivavada. Through Nana Jivavada. Different jivas. Multiplicity of the jivas. So now there is Eka Jivavada, Nana Jivavada, Pratibimbavada, then Avachedavada, Abhasavada. These are the main prakriyas, methods of explanation. Whichever prakriya, whichever method suits you the most, appeals you the most, satisfies your intelligence the most, you can take to it. No matter whichever the prakriya you may take to, the siddhanta that Atma is Brahman remains the same. So now, Nana Jivavada. Kechittu Nana Jnanam Svikritya Vanavada Jnana Samudaya Samashtihe Tadupahitam Chaitanyam Ishvaraha Vrikshavat Pratyekam Jnanam Vyashtihe Tadupahitam Chaitanyam Prajnaha. So under Nana Jivavada, there is multiplicity of ignorances. So there are many ignorances. And therefore, since there are many ignorances, the consciousness conditioned by every individual ignorance now becomes many jivas. And the totality of all this ignorances, totality, samashti, like the forest, is the totality of all the trees. Now, this totality of all the ignorances is the conditioning, and the consciousness conditioned by this conditioning, by the samashti, by the totality, is called as Ishvaraha. So, samashti here, nana jnanam svikritya, sorry, vanavadajnana samudayaha samashtihi tadupahitam chaitanyam Ishvaraha. Vrikshavat, like the vriksha, like the tree, like every individual tree. So, consciousness conditioned by every individual ignorance is called as vyashti. By that individual ignorance is called as vyashti. And consciousness conditioned by this vyashti is called as jeevaha or prajnaha. Okay? This is one explanation, according to, now we have seen several, okay? That according to Eka Jiva Vaad, Nana Jiva Vaad. Now he gives you yet more, something more, Athava, one more explanation for Jiva and Ishvara. Karani bhuta jnanopahitam chaitanyam Ishvaraha. So what happens? Ishvara, we have anyways accepted as conditioned by ignorance. Now that ignorance means over there through Maya, Shuddha Sattva Pradhana. But this is Karani bhuta, which means it has the potential to produce an effect. So this Karani bhuta jnanam. So what is there? Ignorance, but this ignorance is how it is. It is the karanam, the causal, which has the causal ignorance. So the consciousness conditioned by the causal ignorance is called as Ishvara. How would we say that? Karani bhuta ajnanopahitam chaitanyam Ishvaraha. Okay. Karani bhuta ajnanopahitam chaitanyam Ishvaraha. So now, all these definitions that the author has brought together is such a great blessing, because, in order to see how it has been explained under that particular theory, you may have to go through those volumes of books. Okay. But over here, this teacher has done the sangraha of all these definitions in one place. And that's why I have found this book to be of great value. Then, if this is Ishvara, what is now, how is Ishvara explained? Karani bhuta ajnana upahitam chaitanyam. Chaitanyam is important. Never ever forget Chaitanyam. So Karani bhuta ajnanopahitam chaitanyam Ishvaraha. Okay. Then what would be the jiva? Obviously, if this ajnanam is karanam, then we will have to have the karyam. Karyam meaning the effect, that is cause, then this is effect. So karani bhuta. So now, what is the karyam of this what do they call it? Ajnanam. Antakaranaupahitam chaitanyam jeevaha. Antakaranaupahitam chaitanyam jeevaha. The consciousness conditioned by the antakaranam, by the inner equipment, is called as jeeva. This is good. Okay. Now, with so many explanations and definitions that you have been provided, work around each one of them. Work around each one of them in your contemplation. This is a lot of fuel for your own mananam. Okay. Furthermore, in all the cases, mayopahita chaitanyam is what remains common. Whichever, according to the Ekajiva Vada, Nanajiva Vada, whether you take it as, Ajnanam as bifurcating as Maya, Avidya, Malina Sattvam, or Shuddha Sattvam, or you take these as two different Shaktis of Ajnanam, and then the Jnana Shakti, Kriya Shakti. The Kriya Shakti also further bifurcates into Avarana Shakti, Vikshepa Shakti. Okay. Or Avarana Shakti Pradhanam Avidya, and or consider Jnana Shakti Pradhanam Maya. Okay. So Kriya Shakti is not directly but the Jiva is not called directly as something that is conditioned by Kriya Shakti. But under the Kriya Shakti also there is Avarana and Vikshepa. Amongst these also, only the Avarana Shakti is what becomes the conditioning of the consciousness, and with this conditioning, that same Chaitanyam is called as Jiva. Okay. Now, up to this point, everything is fine. Mayopaitam Chaitanyam Ishvaraha. This remains common and is always upahitam. Okay, is always upahitam. Upahitam meaning, this word conditioned by Maya. Does not become vishishtaha, one with Ishvara. It does not, it is not an adjunct of Ishvara. It is not a Visheshana. It is what? A conditioning, upadhi. Mayopahitam Chaitanyam. Now this Mayopahitam Chaitanyam has got something over here. We have said he becomes the Ishvara is at this simultaneously the Karta as well as the Nimitta Karanam as well as the Upadana Karanam. The pot maker as well as the clay. Pot maker is the Nimitta Karanam and the clay is the Upadana Karanam. Nimitta Karanam is called as, what is Nimitta Karanam called as in English? Anyone?
Material cause.
Efficient cause, Swamiji.
Efficient cause. And upadana karanam is called as material cause. So the Siddhanta is Ishvara at the same time is the material cause as well as the efficient cause. Abhinna nimittopadana karanam. How does this Ishvara, in what way is Ishvara called as the nimitta karanam? So over here we say jnana shakti upahita swarupena jagat karta nimitta karanam. Conditioned by jnana shakti, he is called as the nimitta karanam, efficient cause. Vikshepa shakti upahita swarupena jagat upadanam, conditioned by the vikshepa shakti pradhanam. Okay, it is already there, but now we are simply saying with the predominance of this in our explanation, he will be called as upadanam. Vikshepa shakti upahita swarupena jagat upadanam. Okay, vikshepa shakti mad ajnanopahita swarupena. I'll put one more thing for better clarity. Vikshepa shakti mad ajnana vikshepa shakti mad ajnanopahita swarupena jagad upadanam. Then we have gone through all this rigmarole. Ishvara, now from this Ishvara who has become the Jagat Karanam, the Jagat has to come. How does this Jagat come into existence? Tasmad vae tasmad atmanaha akashasambhutaha akashad vayuhu vayoragnihi agnerapaha apaha adbhyah prithvi prithivyamoshadhayaha. Come on. Now, directly the Pancha Mahabhutas have come into existence. How have they come? Akasha Dvayu, there is a sequence indicated. Akasha, Vayu, Agni, Jala, and then Prithvi. And then finally comes the gross seeds, and from where now the various bodies and objects come into existence. So now these Panchamahabhutas are yet in their own nascent form, pure form. Akasha is Akasha, Vayu is Vayu, Agni is Agni, so on and so forth. So don't just simply think of it as the physical Akasha, physical Vayu, etc. All these Panchamahabhutas at the same time are Trigunatmaka. They are consisting of the Trigunas because their Karanam Ashyanam is Trigunatmakam. So Akasha will also have the elements of Sattva, Raja and Tama. Vayu will also have the element, its constituents, which are, it is a composite of Sattva, Raja and Tama. Now, so on and so forth. Now, what happens from the Sattva Guna of each Panchamahabhuta? Okay, from the Sattva Guna of each Panchamahabhuta, the Jnanendriyas are born. Born in the sense, come into existence. Okay? And the total of all the Sattva Guna of all the five Mahabhutas now becomes comes together to become the antakarana. Comes together to become the antakarana, the inner equipment. How is this inner equipment? It is fourfold. It has got four functions: mana, buddhi, chitta, and ahankar. So all this, along with the jnanendriyas. So now indriyas are not just this physical, golakas. No, these are not the physical parts of the body is called as the indriyas. These parts may be there, but the shakti, the potential, which is able to function through the specific areas, locations, is indriyas. And because the chakshurindriya functions through this golaka, we in common parlance are going to call this physical structure also as, we call it as the chakshurindriya. But what really is chakshurindriya? It is the subtle element, sattva guna of over here, chakshurindriya is the subtle element, from the subtle element of Agni. Okay, therefore. Now, let's go ahead like that. So, we have the antakaranam and jnanendriyas from the sattva guna of the five mahabhutas. The rajoguna now transforms into the karmendriya, individual karmendriya. Individual bhuta will become the individual karmendriya. And together, the totality of these five rajoguna of the panchamahabhutas, of the five great elements, becomes the pancha pranas. Okay? So now this together, the antakaranam, jnanendriyas, karmendriyas, and the pancha pranas, the prana. This together is the subtle body, sukshma deha. This is the sukshma deha, the subtle body. This remains common, no matter what is the physical body. Sometimes you may become chimpanzee, sometimes you may become a human being, sometimes a devata, sometimes yaksha, kinnar, celestial bodies, whatever. But we have these pancha mahabhutas, bhautika dehas. This is the subtle body. It remains the same. Now, furthermore, this sukshma shariram is the totality. So now the indriya is also one. Means if you are talking about the chakshurindriya, it is one. But when it functions through the body of the ant or through the body of a bee or an insect, it functions differently. Certain things will be seen by the ant and the insect, which is not visible to the eyes of the human beings, because though it is chakshurindriya, but this chakshurindriya is under the conditioning of human body, and that's why. So like that, chakshurindriya is one. It is the part of this samashti. It is the samashti, the totality. So we have the sukshma sharira also as samashti and vyashti, the totality and individuality. This individual will always remain as the part, integral part, inseparable part of the samashti. It can never be segregated. And therefore, more you become aware of this existence of totality, the individuality starts evaporating. The individuality may be for some vyavahara, for a transaction, but beyond that, it has got no real meaning. Remember this. And so now, this importance which the individuality has gained, I'm an individual, and therefore more and more and more and more the importance that it gains, more are these encumbrances of loneliness, boredom, helplessness, jealousy, anger, all these things will be there. And therefore, once when you start seeing this, that whatever is the subtle body or even the gross body is the part of totality, it cannot exist apart from this totality. Now, the individuality may be a functional reality. Individuality can be a functional reality. But just because you can function with it does not mean that it is what is absolutely real. Okay? Does not mean it is absolutely real. You know, in our early days as Mahatmas, sometimes, we did not have, we didn't have proper clothes or anything to live. Now that what I may be wearing to wrap the body may become something like a shawl to wrap around the shoulders. But at night when one had to sleep, this itself will become the upastaranam, the bed sheet, or bed was not there, what? Bed sheet, just something to spread on and to lie down. Or if it is cold, this itself will become like a shawl to pull over the head right up to the toes. So now in the morning, it is a cloth to wrap around the shoulders. At night, it becomes like a mat to lie down on. Now, please tell, is this cloth a bed sheet or is this a shawl for the shoulders? Nothing. The cloth by itself is neither the mat nor the shawl. What is it then? Depending upon what function you want to perform, you are going to call it a shawl or a bed sheet. Correct? That is what you are going to say. So this is functional reality. When you have used it as a bed sheet or you have used it as a cover, you cover in the sense the what do they call it? The pullover. It is something like that to cover your body. But if you are going to use it only as a thing to cover your shoulders, it is just a shawl. That cloth does not demand anything. It is the reality of that thing is it is a cloth. The reality, the functional reality, whether it is something to put on the shoulders or to put on the floor, depends on what you want to, how you want to use it. This is functional reality. So functional reality is not real. So the individuality is like this functional reality. In order to function, but beyond that, it cannot be called as an absolute reality. Remember this. So, and more importance that you associate to this, more reality that you associate more than the functional reality that you accord to these to the individuality. मेरा सम्मान नहीं करते, देखो मुझे पूछते नहीं, हाँ मेरा अपमान किया, मैं तो इतनी बड़ा, मैं इतना बड़ा, मैं इतनी बड़ी. अरे भाई तुम क्या बड़े और क्या छोटे. This individuality is just an imagination in the totality. And this totality is Ishvara. In Ishvara, this individuality rises and the individuality merges, depending upon the function. Therefore, more and more you become aware of the totality and its relationship to the individual. This then is the devotion. This then is upasana. So now look at it. Samashti and Vyashti. Furthermore, how is this samashti of the sukshma sukshma deha, of the sukshma shariram? It is apanchikrita panchamahabhutani plus the linga shariram is what is the samashti of the sukshma shariram. Okay. Now, what is Vyashti? Pratyekam linga shariram. Linga shariram means the subtle body. And upahitam chaitanyam. So consciousness conditioned by the total subtle body is called as Hiranyagarbha. And consciousness conditioned by the individual subtle body is called as Taijasaha, is Taijasa. Okay. And between this totality and totality and individuality, between the samashti and vyashti, there is tadatmyam. What is there? There is tadatmyam. And what is the definition of tadatmyam? Bheda sahishnu abhedaha. Bhinnatve sati abhinnatvam. Though seen as bhinna, it is abhinnam, non-separate. Okay? That is tadatmyam. Sukshma shariram puryashtakam api uchyate. This sukshma sharira, the subtle body, is also called as the collection of 8 cities, like how you have the twin cities, Sikandarabad, Hyderabad, like that, the twin cities. Puryashtakam. What is the Puryashtakam? 8 Puris. Puri means a nagara, a city. So 8 cities, dwelling places, 8 of them. So what is this? Jnanendriya, Karmendriya, Antakaranam, Pranaha, Bhuta Sukshma Panchakam. Pay attention, I'm not saying Sukshma Bhuta Panchakam, I'm saying Bhuta Sukshma Panchakam, Kama and Avidya. These 8 are called as Puryashtakam. So this is sometimes because, some teachers are going to use the word Puryashtakam, and when they want to use the Puryashtakam, they want to bring the entire thing together under this with, as Jnanendriyas, Karmendriyas, Pranas, Antakaranam, Bhuta Sukshma Panchakam, Kama and Avidya. So he perhaps wants to emphasize on something like that. Tatra avidya karyaha drashtavyaha. Now, under this sukshma shariram, where it is called as puryashtakam, avidya is mentioned. This avidya is not the mula avidya. Over here, this avidya, which is falling under the puryashtakam, this avidya is the karya avidya. There is a difference. Karya avidya. What is this karya avidya? Where the person perceives that what is anityam as nityam. Where the person perceives the anityam as nityam, that which is bound by time, he sees it as not bound by time. The body is bound by time. Your mind, your concepts, the ego, everything is bound by time. Yet he refuses to see it as bound by time. Okay? So, anitya nitya buddhi. And that's why, he says that I will love you till the end of time, forever. Forever. What forever? After 20 minutes, when you get occupied with something, you will forget. But this fellow, I love you forever. Anitya nitya buddhi, ashuchau shuchitva buddhi. That what is ashuchi. Ashuchi means apavitram. Something which is apavitram. Apavitram. This is a very interesting concept. Generally, we understand the word clean in the sense of, something that is sterilized. No germs, no things like that. That is what we call as clean. There is yet another idea of cleanliness, which is very peculiar to Hinduism, and that is pavitra and apavitra. Holy, unholy is not the word that I want to use, because the blood is called as something that is unholy or apavitram, no matter whose it is, no matter whose blood it may be. If it is there, it is apavitram. No. But then there will be a concept in other religions as the holy blood and holy tears and holy spit. No, there is nothing holy about it. The whole thing is unclean. So they are going to say pavitra and apavitra, ashuchi and shuchi. So that what is apavitra is seen as pavitra. That what is asukha, dukkham, is viewed as sukham. That which is devoid of joy, happiness, how you will see that as something, as the cause of joy. That is, and that what is anatma is seen as atma. So this all topsy-turvy perception is the avidya, which is the part of the puryashtakam. We are not talking about the mula avidya and all those things over here. When this avidya is mentioned as the part of the subtle body, it means only this much. Okay? Samashti vyashtyoho samanya visheshayoho iva tadatmya bhyupagamat upahitayoho api tadatmyam. The next step to be appreciated is this. Between the samashti and vyashti, What are these? The conditionings. The samashti is also a conditioning. The vyashti is also a conditioning. The samashti karana deha, the samashti sukshma deha, the samashti sthula deha. What is this sthula deha? When the panchamahabhutas, there now we have seen what happens to their sattvic amsha. Sattvic amsha. We have seen what happens to the rajoguna amsha. We have to see what happens to their tamoguna amsha. In this tamoguna amsha of all the five bhutas, it comes together. Now, this coming together of the panchamahabhutas, tamoguna, is in a very, very interesting manner. And it is called as the process of panchikaranam. Thus, when they come together, now the gross body is created. And so what is this world, the gross world, physical world that we see? It is the collection of various gross bodies. So what is it? It is the tamoguna amsha of the panchamahabhutas. So whether it is this gross body or the subtle body, ultimately what is it? It is nothing but the panchamahabhutas alone. And this, therefore, the totality of the total causal body, the total subtle body, the total gross body is samashti. Vyashti is the individual causal body, the individual gross body, the individual subtle body, and the gross body. So samashti vyashtayoho, these are the conditionings. So between these conditionings, there is a tadatmyam. The individual conditioning is the part of the total conditioning. Okay, it is a part, it is inseparable, but appears to be separate. It is inseparable, but appears to be separate. Bhinnatve sati abhinnatvam. Remember, samashti vyashtiyoho samanya visheshayoho iva. Like how? Like this samanya and vishesha. Like the general and specific. Like the general and the specific. Samanya visheshayoho iva tadatmya abhyupagamat. There is this tadatmyam abhyupagamat. Upahitayohorapi tadatmyam. Now, that which is conditioned by these conditionings also have a tadatmyam. So, when the consciousness is conditioned by the total causal body, it is called as Ishvara. When along with the conditioning of the total causality, there is the total subtlety, it is called as the consciousness is called as Hiranyagarbha. The consciousness is called as Vaishwanara, with the conditioning of total causality plus the total subtlety plus the total gross is Vaishwanara. Okay. Now, similarly, in the individual, only with the conditioning of the causal body, individual causal body, the consciousness is called as prajna. With the individual causal body plus the individual subtle body, now the consciousness is called as taijasa. And when there is total, not total, the individual causal plus the individual subtle plus the individual gross body. Now this is the experience of waking world. Is called, the consciousness is called as Vishwa. These are your real names. Vishwa, Taijasa, and Prajna. So this Vishwa is inseparable from the Vaishwanara. The Taijasa is inseparable from the Hiranyagarbha. And the Prajna is inseparable from Ishvara. Okay, this is how it is. So you have to now see this. So when you are going to, when you see yourself as an individual with the gross body, and this is how you are, then it is the experience of the waking world. And here he is called as the Vishwa. Now these are all Vishwas. Each one of them actually assumes a different name. I'm Ram, Sham, so on and so forth. This is how it is. Tamasamshat sthula sharirotpattihi panchikaranam. So now from the tamasa amsha, from the, what do they call, the part of the tamoguna, now becomes this sthula sharira of the panchamahabhutas. Okay, and then this also will be Vyashti and Samashti. Now, if we have understood all this is good. What is the Samashti of Tamasamsha? The total, all this physical world, Brahmandantam tad antarvarti karyam, and everything that is there in these worlds, the physical world, is all gross world, which is what? The Panchikrita Samashti. Deha. So now we have understood there is this non-separation of the jeeva from Ishvara. And more clearly and intensely that one will be able to see this fact, one will become free from the encumbrances, the suffocation of individuality. From the suffocation of individuality. We will now see this when we meet tomorrow, okay, where we are going to talk a little bit about the upasana, okay. And what are we actually seeing so far is adhyaropa. And the next step is going to be apavad. So far, all this is under the adhyaropa. Superimposition. Then we are going to see what is desuperimposition, which is the next step. These are the two padukas of the teacher to be worshipped. Adhyaropa, apavad. We will now do the Shanti mantra and close the session. Om Brahmaham yat prasadena mai vishvam prakalpitam Shrimat Swayam Prakashakhyam Pranavmi Jagatam Gurum Yah Paramatma Jagat Srishtva Pravivesha Punaswayam तं कृष्णं प्रत्यगात्मानं वन्दे गोपी मनोहरम्। यस्य प्रसादादहमद्वयात्मा विश्वं समस्तं मयि कल्पितं च तं सर्वलोकैकगुरुं सदाश्री स्वयं प्रकाशं गुरुमानतोऽस्मि। गुरूणां चरणां भोजं प्रणिपत्य निरन्तरं तत्कृपालेशतो द्वैत चिंता कौस्तुभमारभे। पूर्णमदः पूर्णमिदं पूर्णात् पूर्णमुदच्यते पूर्णस्य पूर्णमादाय पूर्णमेवावशिष्यते। ओम शांति शांति शांति। शंकरं शंकराचार्यं केशवं बादरायणं सूत्रभाष्यकृतौ वन्दे भगवन्तौ पुनः पुनः। ईश्वरो गुरुरात्मेति मूर्तिभेद विभागिने व्योमवद्व्याप्तदेहाय दक्षिणामूर्तये नमः। Thank you all. Thank you very much.